Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story. Thanks so much for joining me today for Jellybeans on Parade. So this weave was originally contributed by Elvin Leaf. That is the only name we could find, so that's the name we're going with. This is a neat weave. It's just a variation of a barrel weave or rhinos sorting Drano. And the only difference between this and rhinos would be that this is a continuous pattern, whereas that would have breaks in between each of the rows, and I think you'll understand more as I go along. I think that this particular project hasn't been freely available before because there is a bit of confusion about the AR that is available out there. So I'm just going to show you that I have done this in two ARs. The one I'm going to do the tutorial in is the higher AR, and I did that purposely because I think that the more open the rings are, the more you can see where things are going in and out as we go along. But I'm also going to show you, I have this as a kit in a open ring version of how to do this, and then the smaller AR I have as a kit in the closed ring version of this. Okay, so you can do whichever one you'd like. I included both in the video, so I'm going to show you two ways to do this, and then I just wanted to show you the difference in these ARs. So this is the tighter version and this is the looser version. So if you want something that's, you know, looks more randomized and stuff like that, then go with the larger AR. And if you want to see this weave in a tighter version where you can really see the weave a little bit better, then go with the lower AR, and that will serve you. So I do believe that Joshua Diliberto in his Tome of Weaves was correct in saying that the ideal AR for this would be 4.1 to 4.6, I believe he said. And then you can see you can still do it in the higher, but you just don't quite see the pattern of the weave as well. So, you know, it's totally up to you what you're comfortable doing. I've shown you both. Each of these tutorials is shown in the two different ways that I'm going to show it to you. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out here was that this particular AR does not lend itself well to just the standard size jump rings that are available. So all I'm showing you when I do the math here is that when I try and figure out how to hit a target like this or a target like this, this one was listed at 5.3, what I do is I add together the ARs of the two rings that I want to use together. Okay, and then this 10.3, this is just these two ARs added together. Then I divide by 2, and then this is going to give me what the AR average is that I'll be working with. So this makes it a little bit easier to pick out rings for myself to use. And I also do this with my rubber O-rings, is that I'll add the jump ring and the O-ring ARs together, divide by 2, and that gives me an average AR, and that pretty much tells me if I'm in the ballpark of what can be easily used for that particular weave. Okay, so that's a lot of talk. I'm sorry about that, but there were a few things to discuss with this one. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started making this weave. Okay, so in order to start this weave, I have gone ahead and set up my beginning rows on two separate paper clips. Each one of these is going to be a different technique for doing this particular weave. I thought it would be beneficial for you to see both ways that it can be done, and then you can choose which way you would like to do it. So on one of these, you can see that I have closed some of the rings, and on the other one, I've left them open. Okay, and then the main body of the row is going to be made with two 20 gauge 3/16 jump rings. So each row is going to have two of these, and one of the contrasting color. And this ring is going to be going this way. It's going to be sitting up vertically instead of horizontally the way these are laying flat. Okay, so the first way that I like to do this is I have my two rings here, and I'm going to just kind of slide them apart, and then I go down through one side, and you can see there is an eye. Okay, so right here where these rings intersect, this hole in the middle, that's the eye, and we want to go around the eye. So I'm going to go down through the jump ring that's closer to me, and I'm going to come up out of the jump ring that's farther away from me. But you can see that I've avoided passing through the eye that entire time. Okay, and then I will close this jump ring. So I'm going to show you this method first, and then I'm going to show you the next method. I'd rather show you a few rows so that if you're following along, you can see it all at one time. Okay, so now to start a new row, all we're going to do is take two jump rings. Now we're going to be passing through the eye. Okay, and by passing through the eye, basically what we're doing is ensuring that we're passing through each of those two base row jump rings belonging to the first row. So we're going to pass through the eye. Just going to close this. When you're using jump rings that have a very high AR, as these do, these have an AR of 6, you need to make sure to spend a little bit more time closing, because they aren't going to match up quite as well as a smaller AR jump ring. Now I'm going to go through the eye again. Okay, and I'm making sure I'm not passing through this one I just added. Okay, I'm just adding two new jump rings to start my next row. Okay, and I've closed each of those. So now you can see that this new row looks just like that last row did. Okay, and let me fix this. Make sure you have nice closures on your jump rings. Okay, and then I'm going to take another of my matte jump ring. I am just using matte jump rings because you all will be able to see them much better on screen. Okay, so again, I'm going down through the jump ring that's closer to me, and I'll come back up out of the one that's farther from me. The other way you can do this too is if you get it down through this jump ring that's closer to you, you can also push this prong down through as well. Just as long as you're passing around the eye, you can do this any way that you would like to. Whatever is most comfortable for you is how you should do these things. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more row, and then we'll go over to the other technique. Okay, so again, I'm passing through the eye that's between the two silver rings, closing, okay, and then I'm going to pick up another one, another of my base row jump rings, and in this case those are silver. So these were the ones that I said are horizontal. Okay, and again I'm passing through the eye, okay, and not through this other jump ring that I just added. These are just sitting side by side. Okay, and then you see how I use my left hand and I support this from underneath, and that allows those two jump rings to spread out. Okay, and go around the eye again. Alright, so that is technique number 1. And in this technique, I had these rings open. Okay, so I could add them on at the end of the step. So let me set this to the side. And you know what, before I move on to the next one, let me just show you that when you add when you add this next jump ring to start a new row and you pass through the eye for the first time, that is what's going to lock this row that I just finished into place. Okay, so if I want to get up and walk away from my work, I want to go ahead and just start a new row with one ring. That way it'll hold everything in place before it and I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so I'm going to do that just so later if I want to come back and continue working on this, it's all set to go. Okay, so I'm going to set this over to the side, and now let me show you the other technique for doing this. Okay, so in this technique you see that I have closed jump rings here. It was just easier for me to close them first. If you want to add them one at a time, that is not a problem. Go right ahead. Okay, but in this case, this first row is just for me to work off of. Okay, I didn't want to show you doing this starting from these little rings here, and in the kits that I make up, I actually just show this with the clasp already attached to the first row. Okay, so let's just ignore this first row. I just wanted to have some stuff to work off of. Okay, so I'm going to pass this jump ring through to start a new row, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up that orbital ring that's going to make up the center of my row. Okay, I'll close this jump ring. So now I have 2 jump rings in this row, and I need my third. So I need the other silver base row jump ring that's going to be part of this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, as I hold this, okay, you can see that these 2 are horizontal and this one's vertical. And what's going to need to happen is, of course, I'm going to need to go back through the previous row just like I was before, but I do that by taking this ring back, and you see how I'm turning it a little bit counterclockwise and catching that previous row. So in most cases there will be an eye, and I'll be passing through that eye. I'm going to show you this again, so don't worry if you didn't catch that on the first go round. Okay, and then here is my row. It's a little bit harder to see when you do it this way, but now you can see there is my eye right here where these 2 silver rings are intersecting. Okay, so let me go ahead, just like before, we always want to like lock down that row we just did, and I'm starting a new row here, so I'm going to pass through the eye that's between these 2 jump rings. Okay, I'm going to pick up my closed ring, and that's why I'm able to do the closed ring, because I mean I could close this silver jump ring and then go ahead and attach the pink jump ring. That wouldn't be a problem, but it was just faster and easier for me to do it this way. But like I said, you can do it any way you're comfortable with. Okay, so I have the first 2 rings of this next row added. Now I'm going to take my third ring of the row, okay, and I'm just showing you that my silver rings are now horizontal, and then this ring is sitting vertically. If you're more comfortable holding it this way, you can too. This is just for demonstration purposes. I feel like you can see more of what's happening here. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to do here is, because I'm passing this ring through, okay, in this direction, I'm passing away from me, I know that when I pass through this eye down here, that I also want to be working away from me. I'm going to be moving in that same direction. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to let this go slack, and I'm going to turn my hand counterclockwise so that I can come back and pass through this eye here. Okay, and then I will close the jump ring, and this row will be complete. Okay, and see how I'll push this center ring, that's the orbital ring, I'm kind of pushing up on it so that it sets itself into place. Okay, then I'm going to take a new jump ring. I'm going to pass through the eye once again. We've done this every row. Okay, so I'll just let you see that's passing through the eye, and then I'm going to pick up my closed ring and close. Okay, and then I'm going to take another of my base row rings, my silver rings, and again you can see that this passed through from closer to me to away from me, moving away from myself. Okay, and then when I pass through the eye for this previous row, I want to pass that through in the same direction. So I'm going to let this go slack. I'm going to turn my hand and turn this ring counterclockwise, and I'm going to pass through the eye of that previous row. Okay. And close. All right, and then once again, like I said, let this matte ring, this center orbital ring, I'm pushing that up, and then I'm going to go ahead and lock this row into place. Okay, so either way you want to do this is just fine. I wanted to show you both ways because one of these ways may be easier for you. For me, quite frankly, I know I'm a weirdo. This way, going around the eye is a little bit easier for me. But this way that I showed you is more like building a European 4-in-1 out of one row, and it's actually easier for most people. I think most people prefer this method. So you can decide. This one's also a little bit faster because you can pre-close these jump rings, whereas in the first version that I showed you, none of the rings get pre-closed. Everything gets open. So do whichever way you're comfortable with. You're going to go ahead and continue creating the length of this bracelet, and then I'll just show you when you get to the end, all that you want to do is take your small jump rings. In this case I'm using 20 gauge 7/64s, and I, instead of starting a new row with one of these 20 gauge 3/16 rings that I'm using, I just added that in instead, and I added the 2 jump rings, and then I took one of my larger jump rings, that orbital ring, which is an 18 gauge as opposed to a 18 gauge as opposed to a 20 gauge, and I added that through here, and that's just for sturdiness. But you can see that now I have a nice lobster clasp on this, and this makes a really nice chain for bracelets, necklaces, earrings. This is a really cute chain. I like it a lot, and it has a certain random quality to it that is going to make it very effective design wise and give you some interest and texture. Okay, but when you get to the end, as I said, all you need to do is just start a new row using some smaller rings, attach a link to it. On the other side I have my lobster clasp. If you want to use a different type of clasp, that's just fine. Just use some smaller rings that are going to hold these end rows together nicely, and then you can just attach a clasp on either end. Okay, so I hope you'll give this project a try. Jellybeans on Parade is a really fun weave to do. It's a very simple, I would put this at the experienced beginner level. This is a progression from the barrel weave, so if you've done barrel weave, then this would be kind of the next step that you would want to try. And I will very soon be showing a beaded method for this, and it's really cool. It is a project that was created by Amy Christine Moore, and I'm super excited to show it to you. So that will be coming soon as well. I hope in the meantime you will give this basic weave a try so that you can get very comfortable with it before we start adding beads to it. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.